Fresh out of nursing school, I got my first real job in a fairly large hospital in a department that I honestly never thought I would ever work in. It was a six-bed cardiac ICU with rooms that overlooked the city capitol building. It was a very nice unit, and I started out working 12 hours night shift. The hospital I worked at had four other ICUs that were always full, so my unit always ended up being code bed, meaning if someone was arrested or went downhill fast somewhere around the hospital, they came to us. I had been working there for a year and I was no strain to death. Each patient of mine who had died on my shift was usually already on their way out. Their families were by their side. The DNR order was signed. The funeral home was already picked out. It was rarely ever a surprise. In fact, the only time I was ever needed to do CPR on my shift, it was not even my department. So I went on a nice long 2 week vacation, got engaged, and had a beautiful day. On my first night back, I received a report from the day charge nurse. She said she was off for a few days and suggested to remind the next day charge nurse that the priest was coming in the morning to bless room 4. I thought she was kidding at the first, but she was serious. Apparently, while I was on vacation, every patient who was admitted to that room had died. But this came as no shock to me. People died often in our department, and it being a very religious institution, having a Kaflian for the almost every department. I just shook it off. Then she said that room 4 was empty and that it would serve as cold bed for the night. Around 2 a.m., I got a call saying that they have someone to fill our open bed. The ICU downstairs was now going to be cold bed. So we were getting your run of the mild chest pain, take a look in the morning kind of patient. Nothing to get excited about. We get the patient admitted and all settled in room 4. It was a gentleman about 50 or so years old, very pleasant. His wife was with him and she looked dead on her feet. I got her some warm blankets and took her to our waiting room that had coats so she could get some rest. Around 3:30, I was watching monitors and the cameras in each room. All the patients were fast asleep. The cameras are cycled through about 3 seconds each on one small TV we had on the desk. Room 1 was fine, room 2 was fine, room 3 was fine. Room 4, there was someone in there. It cycled too quickly for me to get a good look, and the doors to the unit were locked. Maybe the other nurse let his wife back in. I walked down the hall and glanced inside. There was nobody. I shrugged it off. It was late. I was tired. I was probably just seeing things. I went back to the desk and continued watching the screen. Room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4. I was not imagining anything. There was someone in the room 4. The person was standing in the corner by the window, their figure completely draped in shadow. I could not move my body. It cycled through again. This time it was closer to the patient's bed by maybe 2 or 3 feet. The hair stood straight up on my neck. The next time it cycled through, it was even closer. It stood in the light coming from the hallway. But despite the light, it was still surrounded in darkness. It cycled through again and it was right next to the bed. My heart started pounding and I could barely squeeze to the nurse on the other side of the desk. As soon as my word formed and I was able to make some kind of noise to get her attention, the alarm on the monitor went off, signaling that the patient had cardiac arrested. The overhead system came on. A card is needed in CCU room 4. People poured into the department, doctors, nurse, pharmacist, respiratory therapist. They all rushed into the room, but I could not move. It cycled through the room again. Room 4 came up, and this time the lights were on, and there was 10 to 15 people surrounding the bed, doing CPR and slamming meds into IV. Someone went to get his wife from the waiting room, but there it was in the opposite corner again, a dark figure watching this scene play out, just standing there. The man died of heart attack. Room 4 was blessed that morning, right on schedule. I put it in 2 weeks' notice. Dizzy Miss Lizzie.